In this video, I'm going to explain in depth the best time to eat and meal timing explained. So this is another question we got from one of our subscribers on the best time to eat carbohydrates, but I wanted to do a full video on it. So today I'm going to explain a little bit more about breaking myths about meal timing, digestion with meal timing, carbohydrate timing, and then tactical takeaways on what we should be doing to optimize fat loss. So if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Adam Bunnell. I'm an online fat loss professional. I specialize in metabolic priming, a process of metabolism manipulation. So I am currently owner of one of the top upcoming fitness coaching companies on the internet right now, and we do these videos on this channel to just help you guys out, to help the subscribers out. And we got a lot of guys asking a bunch of questions in the comments, which I love because it gives me context on what you guys want to see. So keep those coming. But anyways, today we're going to explain it in detail. So getting right into today's video in general, one, I want to break a lot of myths around meal timing first of all, okay? So like we've all probably heard of the myths of the fasting, OMAD, 1 meal a day, carbs after dark, and I want to kind of help you guys understand meal timing in general, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't run for the law of thermodynamics, which is calories in versus calories out, right? In a 24-hour period. So one is that the fasting diet, where it gets its popularity, is it allows people to eat in a certain window, which restricts calories through the day. In a lot of cases, guys will hit a plateau because they don't know how many calories they're actually eating. So put this into context. If we have a 2,000 calorie diet and we eat 2,000 calories in a 2-hour period, or we eat 2,000 calories in a 24-hour period, there is no significant difference. Absolutely no significant difference, because it just matters what you eat in a 24-hour period, right? And so where it can get its popularity, where I understand why some people like the fasting diet, is because it does allow you to eat in a time frame to make you feel more full, right? For instance, like comfortability mechanisms. This is how I explain it with my clients, is that fasting in general is just a comfortability mechanism. It allows you to eat in a certain time frame. So like, for instance, if some of my clients aren't hungry in the mornings when they first wake up, I'm like, okay, well, don't eat the first meal of the day. Just push it back to 12. Are they fasting? Yeah, I guess technically, but we're not doing it for the fasting method. We're just doing it for comfortability. Same thing with 1 meal a day. A lot of guys will get into trouble because they'll do 1 meal a day, but they won't track calories, but they'll go over on their calories anyway. So like, let's say that, for instance, somebody's on a 2,000 calorie diet and they are on the 1 meal a day diet, whatever it may be. And then they go out to eat, they sit down at a restaurant and they're like, well, this is my 1 meal a day. I can do whatever I want, right? And they just eat whatever they want. Next thing they know, you're eating 3,000 calories and now you're 500,000 calories over your maintenance for the day. So obviously that's significantly detrimental to actual progress. But at the end of the day, what can be tracked can be improved. If you guys aren't tracking your calories, that's where you should start. And then carbs after dark. So I heard I know a lot of concepts of carbs after dark with, understanding maybe waking up at a leaner rate, but it's really understanding digestion, right? And that's why the next topic I want to cover is digestion as well. So it's like carbs after dark doesn't necessarily matter. At the most, in certain cases, you may wake up a few pounds heavier the next day because you ate late and you haven't digested that food. So really, it just comes down to overall digestion with the carbs after dark method. And like I said, when calories are equated, it doesn't matter. You can eat 2,000 calories at 10 p.m. at night or 2,000 calories at 8 a.m. You're going to weigh lower the next day, yes, but it's just digestion, right? It's not actual fat loss. It's just better digestion because you haven't eaten in a while. And so a really good practice I use for a lot of my clients is if we are some of those late night snackers or the late night food eaters, maybe you get home from the gym late, maybe you get home from work late, and you eat a lot of your calories late at night. Best practice, 15-minute walk right before you go to bed, before you plop yourself down on the couch or in your bed, and that should help with a lot of digestive-related issues. That's a best practice we use amongst a lot of our clients. For instance, like just a late night eating. But anyways, I want to understand digestion a little bit better because the guys who have been watching my channel for a while, you guys know I talk a lot about digestion because I think it's misunderstood in a lot of certain cases. I think people overlook the importance of digestion and what it does in a metabolic process. For instance, digestion is the first key factor, the first step to your metabolic process. How you eat food, break down food for your body, later utilizes that energy, turning it into usable energy and ATP process later on, supplying your metabolism, like digestion is the first thing you got to cover. So the first thing we do with each and every single one of our clients, we cover digestion. We're like, we got to optimize your digestion. And there's certain key points that you can put into there. But the topics I want to bring up is like spreading your meals out will lead to better digestion. Eating 2,000 calories in one sitting, imagine what the work your digestive tract is putting on you rather than maybe 3 to 5 meals in a 24-hour period. It's a less amount of calories for your body to break down, and so your body's working overtime trying to digest that food. You guys ever, after Christmas or after Thanksgiving, you just hit the couch right after and fall right asleep? That's because like your body's working overtime to digest a lot of that food and digest a lot of that fat intake from, a meal like that. And so we have to understand that digestion is really important. And then digestion, there's pre and post workout. So like 30 minutes pre-workout is pretty standard. I know I get the question a lot, like how early should I eat my pre-workout meal? 30 minutes is a pretty good standard, but you have to understand the type of food as well that you're eating pre-workout. And that's what we're going to cover here in a second, but up to 2 hours post-workout. So I know we've heard a lot. I grew up on the anabolic window method that you had to run home within 30 minutes and grab the protein shake or you'd miss the anabolic window. That's not true, right? You don't just lose your anabolism after a certain period. Up to 2 hours is like best practice, yes, but like 2, 3, 4 hours after your workout, you'll be perfectly fine. It's not going to make a significant difference, okay? But there is certain concepts and certain factors that do come into play when you're talking about carbohydrate timing, because this was like the main kind of topic that we wanted to cover today, and one of my subscribers did want to cover today, so I do want to make sure to spend some good time on it. But anyways, carbohydrate timing, pre and post workout. So pre-workout meals doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is pre-workout performance. Okay, so I want you to understand this concept of they've done studies, multiple studies on carbohydrate timing pre-workout. And the findings of the studies is actually pretty significant. And so they did a study once and they gave a certain subject group of people carbohydrates and certain subject group of people they didn't give any carbohydrates to. They diluted it in water so they didn't know which one they were drinking. But there was no significant difference to overall performance, right? When it does come to context, though, is like when it starts to degrade performance. So like carbohydrate timing carbohydrate meals pre-workout is very psychological, right? It's psychosomatic is the word I'm looking for, which means is that if you think you're eating carbohydrates before you work out, and a lot of times you'll have a better workout just because you think carbohydrates are good for you pre-workout. But what it does actually matters is when carbohydrates start to degrade performance, right? Because carbohydrates are your body's main energy source. And so like a lot of my clients, some of them do fast for their workouts, and I advocate it. And I say, if your performance is good and you have good energy during your workouts, you're increasing weight and then you're improving, within your lifts each week, that's perfectly fine. But if like you're a type of person that goes to the gym, you're dragging ass because you don't have any energy, and then you could probably use a pre-workout meal. Me, like I have to have a pre-workout meal. It's just, I don't know if it's just routine. I don't know if it's just basically psychosomatic for me. It's like, okay, I want to eat my pre-workout meal, get good energy for the gym. I feel good. I feel full. And so like for me, I do a pre-workout meal. But I know a lot of guys that don't, that make really good progress. Okay. So like pre-workout meal doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is performance. Okay. So post-workout carbohydrate intake is an important factor for recovery in satellite cells. So post-workout carbohydrates, and I'm going to actually give you some key takeaways with like higher glycemic carbs and like rules of thumbs of what we can use for our pre and post-workout meals. But like I want you to understand that like carbohydrate intake post-workout is pretty important. One, for recovery and sending satellite signals to the satellite cells to the muscles to actually start recovering properly, okay? Because like when you're at a glucose depleted state, that's when your body needs the most amount of carbohydrates for like recovery purposes, reducing adrenal fatigue, reducing cortisol that you've just intaked on the body through the training that you just went through. And so carbohydrate intake after your workout is extremely important. And I tell my clients that. It's like mealtime, like your meal after your workout is important. The timing, is there like a 2 hour to 4 hour period where like you have to get that pre-workout meal within 30 minutes so you're never going to grow? Nah, not at all. So like, but it is important. Like pre-workout, post-workout meal is important and to structure correctly so we can start to cover like a recovery practice. Okay. So like carbohydrate timing, for instance, like in more of a tactical perspective, is like best practice for carbohydrate intake is and this is what we teach our clients is 50%, 60% of our carb intake pre and post workout. Okay. So If this number starts to climb a little bit when you get a little bit lower in carbohydrates, for instance, and I got a example right here. So like 200 grams of carbs, 4 meals per day, 50 grams before and after, 50 grams in other 2 meals. But actually, when you start to reduce carbohydrate intake, let's say that you get down to, 100 grams of carbs per day, which is pretty low in carbs for a lot of our clients. But I would actually just keep that in this context, right? 50 grams before and after your workout, and then 0 grams of carbs in the other 2 meals, right? That'll give you more performance. It'll give you more recovery. It'll give you more energy. And so like this number right here, the percentage will degrade a little bit and will change a little bit depending on the time, how much carbohydrates that you're actually eating. I mean, if you're eating, 400 grams of carbohydrates, then typically we could do even like 100 grams before and after, or maybe 150 grams before and after, and then the other 2 meals just 50 or whatever it may be. But like what I'm saying is that like the more carbohydrates you eat, the more you can have in these other 2 meals, but you want to really prioritize the pre and post workout meal. And if you're somebody who like does not do a pre-workout meal, then like majority of your carbohydrates should be, the 50 or 60% should be right after that workout. So it will spike the glycemic index, it will spike the insulin levels to really start the growing process, and it'll start recovery as well. So anyways, getting down to actual key takeaways, which is what you guys came for, is the key takeaways. Like, what type of carbohydrates do I eat pre and post workout? What type of carbohydrates do I eat? The glycemic index is a very key factor in understanding digestion as well. How well does a carbohydrate digest in your system, get into your bloodstream, and like start the energy process? Okay, so like pre and post workout should be relatively higher glycemic carbohydrates, right? Why? Is because when you're eating a pre-workout meal, you want that pre-workout meal to be very fast digestion. You want to utilize it quick, and you don't want your body to, you don't want to feel like you're full. Nobody wants to feel like they're full like before their workout, right? So the best pre-workout that me and my clients use, and I actually got each and every single one of my clients on this pre-workout meal, is cream of rice, protein powder, and nut butter. Okay, so like cream of rice is basically just grounded up rice, which is a very high glycemic carbohydrate, right? Protein powder is a very quick digesting protein because it's more of a fine powder. And then nut butter, and here's the kicker, is that nut butter is actually really good for slowing down a higher glycemic carbohydrate, right? That is very clean digesting. So I want you to think about cream of rice and protein powder. It's very low in fats, right? Which means that when it's low in fats, it has a higher thermic effect and a quicker digestive rate. So like we can add a simple nut butter on top of a high glycemic carbohydrate and a fast digesting protein powder, and we can slow that digestion process just a tad to the point you can actually utilize a higher glycemic carbohydrate for an extended period of time. So this is what I currently do. This is what all my clients do. But like the cream of rice and protein powder with the nut butter allows us to utilize a high glycemic carbohydrate, have everything digest very well, and have our body utilize that nutrients for longer with the nut butter slowing the glycemic index down just so slightly, right? And then post-workout, very, very simple as well. Rice, this is what I do, and this is what my clients do. Rice, chicken, honey, and like, guys, I'm giving you guys options of what I use and some of my clients use. This isn't the only thing to use. This isn't the only option that you can use, but like this helps me show you key concepts and show you the importance and show you just what it kind of looks like, right? So like rice, chicken, honey, or pineapple. So I want to actually explain this as well. So we know that like nut butter slows down the glycemic index, and that a low-fat option for our meals actually speeds up how well your body digests food, how quickly it utilizes that energy, and we can actually use that to our advantage in a post-workout meal. So like chicken and rice, for instance, very low fat, absolutely no fats at all, high protein, very high carbohydrates, right? And if you add a honey or a pineapple, which is a very, very high glycemic carbohydrate that actually very quickly spikes your insulin with the simple organic sugars in it, you can actually get a low-fat insulin spike, which insulin spike post-workout is a best practice for growing lean tissue and putting that carbohydrates in the correct places, right? And so like you got to understand insulin is kind more of a concept of utilizing and opening up the energy process and energy pathways to put carbohydrates in the correct places. And so you can actually utilize an insulin spike with honey or pineapple in your post-workout meal alongside a chicken and rice, which is very lean protein and very high carbohydrate, low-fat meal, and get a good insulin spike and really start the growing process and putting energy in the correct places. Like I said, this is exactly what I use, exactly what I eat every single day after my meals, and a lot of my clients eat after their meals as well. But you have to understand this is not the only way. I just want to understand that a low-fat, high-protein, high-carbohydrate meal with a good natural sugar for the insulin spike is a really good best practice for your post-workout meal. But anyways, if you guys like this type of video, like, comment, subscribe. We're doing videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm just showing you the exact key concepts that I use with all of my clients. We've worked with over 200 clients in 7 different countries in the last 6 months alone, and we've got guys, 57 years old, looking absolutely shredded. We work with business owners who have very tough schedules, and we just schedule everything out for them and make their lives easier. And this is what it looks like. And I'm here to show you exactly the concepts that I teach them, and so that you can have a little bit of takeaways for your own fitness journey. So anyways, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Turn my bell notifications on if you haven't by now, because I'm dropping a new video on Friday as well. And if you guys want to hear anything more, key takeaways, concepts, put it in the description below, and I'll be happy to cover that as well. So like I said, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.